Kinda hurting my eyes, honestly.
Hi there, everyone. How are you? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Okay, here's the thing. I should not be here in front of you right now. I should be working on my review of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. At the time of this recording, the game recently came out. I played the Wii U version, so I'm already really familiar with it. It should be a decently easy review. The kind I really need to just get out ASAP, you know what I mean? And yet, I cannot. I cannot work on that video at the moment because I have got a very important message that I need to deliver to you first. I just played through the game's brand spanking new story campaign, Bowser's Fury, over the course of a few sittings. You'll have to watch the full review for my complete thoughts, but I found it extremely enjoyable. It easily stands as one of my favorite modern 3D Mario experiences. And when I finished it up, I was practically buzzing with excitement. Thing is though, I wasn't excited because of how good I thought it was. Well, I mean, in a sense I was. The terrific execution is absolutely a very important element here. But more specifically, when those credits rolled, I focused less on the game's quality and more on what the game was. The very concept of Bowser's Fury was enough to sell me on it, but seeing it all play out for myself solidified what I suspected from the start. This weird little side story right here feels like a big deal to me because of the potential it's got. Yes, I know. I do so many videos like this that it's starting to become something of a joke. Seems like everything interesting Nintendo does has got me going, this changes everything! Nintendo should do more of this forever! Is this the future of Nintendo? I'm sorry. I just love to speculate about this stuff and plan out what I would do if I ran the company. And that means recognizing unique opportunities. And Nintendo is so choosy in terms of what they are and aren't willing to do with their IPs that whenever something new happens, it feels like a door has been opened. And I usually want to see them go through that door a bunch more. I'm impatient. I hate tiptoeing. If something works for your business, do more of it. Point is, Bowser's Fury is one of those exciting new opportunities. It's one of those very rare newly opened doors, and I honestly believe that it holds the keys to how Nintendo should produce a lot of their content going forward. Really, Arlo? A 3-hour campaign using recycled assets created to help sell a full-price port of a 7-year-old game? Well, yes, actually. And I don't appreciate the attitude. Up until now, development of Mario's 3D outings has been mostly linear. They finish up a game or a formula, they move on to the next one. They never go back, because why would you go back? Why would you not be constantly focusing on new stuff? I would say the closest Nintendo has come to non-linear 3D Mario development was Super Mario 64 DS. By the time the game released, they had moved on to Super Mario Sunshine and were probably already working on Galaxy, yet they still decided to go back and create some new 64-style content. They added characters, mini-games, and even a few new levels. I don't think this is quite the same thing we're seeing now, though. The extra levels were cool, but they weren't super substantial, and in the end, they still acted only to complement and enhance the pre-existing game. Bowser's Fury, on the other hand, is a unique animal. I'm always going on and on about how Nintendo should do more asset reusing sequels, seeing as they're cheaper to make, quicker to make, and often end up being just as good, if not better, than their predecessors. And Bowser's Fury falls into the asset reusing category, which is just terrific, but it manages to do 3 interesting new things that truly set it apart. The first is reusing assets from an older game rather than the most recent one. Apart from 64 DS, this is not a thing that happens as far as I'm aware of. Normally, if they're gonna do the whole quick sequel thing, they're gonna do the 2 games right next to each other. I mean, it makes sense. A quick turnaround is the whole point. Well, sometimes. But even after Nintendo managed to reinvent 3D Mario all over again with Odyssey, this time to massive, record-shattering success, they still decided to revisit their previous and much less successful game. Bowser's Fury has obviously borrowed a few notes from Odyssey, but for the most part, it is a 3D World-style affair. And I gotta tell ya, I get the business shivers just thinking about how incredibly economical such a move is. Not just reusing your tools, but your old tools? It's a return on investment dream come true. And from the player's perspective, it's fun to return to an old style. It simultaneously makes something new feel familiar and breezy, and something old feel fresh and exciting. The second interesting thing Bowser's Fury does is deliver a substantially more compact Mario experience. As much as I would have loved such a cool concept to be turned into a full game, it's really interesting to see Nintendo being like, well, we don't want this to be a full game. We just want to make a fun little campaign with this idea we've got. It's another highly unusual concept. The third thing that surprised me about Bowser's Fury is that Nintendo decided to take these old assets and mechanics and do something completely new with them. They could have easily just thrown together a new collection of basic 3D world levels. I expected as much, actually. People would have been thankful that there was any new content at all. They would have bought the game up in droves, and that would be that. But Nintendo didn't want to do what was too easy and obvious. They wanted to create a completely unique experience. And even just the idea of taking the linear 3D world and turning it into a free roam sandbox is awesome, but then adding in the whole timed Bowser thing and using Plessie as a form of traversal, it's incredibly unique. It really is a brand new, exciting 3D Mario, even if it's a short one. All three of these interesting new things combine to create something so fresh, so fun, so original. And this right here is the key. This is what I want Nintendo to start focusing on. Not only creating experiences using assets from a recent game, but digging deeper and using assets from even older games. Using those assets in new and interesting ways to breathe new life into their respective formulas. Experimenting with experiences of different sizes so that ideas not necessarily big enough to hold up entire games can still see the light of day. On Nintendo's end, this is obviously a relatively low-cost method of development that can be monetized in different ways on top of being used to raise the value proposition of a re-release. And from the fans' perspective, well, more stuff to play. I want more stuff to play, especially stuff like this. The concept is clearly similar to DLC in that these are smaller products that help bridge the gap between major releases. The difference, however, is that DLC usually comes tied to one specific game. But these kinds of titles can potentially be packaged in any way Nintendo wants and delivered separately from any previous product. Nintendo wants Bowser's Fury to help sell copies of 3D World, but if someday they decided they wanted to sell it all on its own like they did with Torna the Golden Country, they absolutely could. They can attach little side stories to any game, sell them on the eShop, offer them as NSO exclusives, give them away for free. Any method that suits them at any given time. With flexible packaging obviously comes flexible pricing. I know Nintendo is a really big fan of charging as much as they think they can get away with, sometimes with great success, other times at the expense of smaller titles that would have benefited from more strategic pricing. But if they could be flexible themselves here, they could make a ton of money selling experimental side stories. In fact, for years now, I've felt that one area Nintendo lacks is in smaller, downloadable budget titles. Their smaller projects aren't usually incredibly substantial, and when they are, usually they're stuck on a cartridge and sold at full price. Can you tell I've got some opinions about Nintendo's pricing methods? But imagine a game like Bowser's Fury dropping on the eShop for 20 bucks. I guarantee it would sell millions of copies all on its own. It's a smaller title, sold at a budget price, but it's not just a little puzzle game or something. It's a great big epic Mario adventure! And I can't possibly know how much money and time Nintendo spent on the game, but if development was as easy and affordable as I suspect it was, that is a rather substantial gravy train they've embarked upon. Because it doesn't matter how cheap a game is and how much it reuses, as long as the ideas are good and the whole package is executed well. Majora's Mask took them 1 year to develop. It reuses a ton from Ocarina of Time, and it's a cherished fan favorite. I've said this again and again about asset reusing sequels, but most of us love returning to an old style. We love enjoying a formula a second time. We want to spend money on games like that. They spend less, we spend more, everybody wins! And I know we would end up enjoying more projects like Bowser's Fury because Nintendo has got a lot of designers with a lot of really good ideas. And an initiative to create more small projects using recycled assets would produce many more creative and interesting experiences, I have no doubt. The smaller project size allows just about any idea to be fleshed out and turned into something fun, even if it's really weird or silly. And if Nintendo wanted to take that opportunity to tell more stories or even make little campaigns for side characters, then all the better. Not confident enough in the idea of an entire game starring Zelda? Well, here's your chance to make her a little Breath of the Wild style campaign and see how she does. And that right there brings me to a very important point. This whole model is perfect for Mario, obviously. Mario gameplay is very pure and mechanical, and each new formula changes up how things are done pretty drastically. If Nintendo wanted to make more 3D World style stuff, I'm sure we would buy it. We'd probably buy a new 3D World campaign every single year. And if they decided to go even further and make a short little Super Mario Galaxy 2.5 adventure, I don't think you'd hear people complaining. The sky's the limit for 3D Mario. But think about the other series that could benefit from this model. A little Zelda campaign to wet our whistles while we wait for Breath of the Wild 2, or even something made exclusively using assets from Link's Awakening. A small Pikmin story based on Pikmin 3, but sold separately instead of as DLC for 3 Deluxe, so that they can get a feel for how new Pikmin content performs. A little Donkey Kong Country thing, so we can have something to play for the big anniversary without Retro having to dedicate themselves to a full game. A Splatoon game where you play as Salmonids, just cause that would be cool. But go further back, get weird with it. Go back to Nintendo Land and turn Metroid Blast into its own game. Take the 3DS Zelda remasters and make a weird little N64 style Zelda horror story. Take either of the last 2 Yoshi games and give Poochie his own little adventure. Or hey, you could even be kinda corporate and calculated about it. Use pre-existing assets to create small free-to-play versions of the biggest multiplayer Nintendo games to act as entry points for people who don't know if they want to spend the money. You can do anything with the idea. And again, I know this isn't too far off from the concept of simple DLC, but the flexibility in the packaging and the heavy reuse of assets from even relatively old games make the difference here. Generally, Nintendo has only done DLC for their games within a year of release, and their DLC packs are usually what you'd expect from DLC, just more game to play. The same basic thing, but more of it, and with some extra story if we're lucky. It all follows something of a pattern. And what I'm proposing is breaking that pattern. Bowser's Fury proved that yes, even a 7-year-old game can be opened up again and used to create something very new and very interesting. Super Mario 3D World on Switch would have been nothing more than a fun little romp for me if it were sold alone. But Bowser's Fury legitimately makes the wait for the next big 3D Mario easier for me. My itch for Odyssey 2, or whatever it ends up being, has been somewhat satisfied, and that right there is a gift. I don't need to tell you that waiting for the next thing can be very difficult. But now, not so difficult at all. In fact, I'm itching to jump back in and play through Bowser's Fury again. I will say, the campaign is permanently attached to the game it's based off of, and that's not exactly what I would want them to do in every case. Breaking free from the DLC formula is part of what makes the idea great, and Bowser's Fury achieves that by being a completely standalone experience. Other than being packaged together, it's not attached to 3D World in any way. You've got to pick one or the other on the title screen. That's fine sometimes, but I do hope that if Nintendo decided to further pursue this new model, they would experiment with all sorts of different packages and delivery methods, such as standalone purchases, of course. By doing this, as I've mentioned, they would be able to give us new experiences from series that aren't necessarily first in line to get a full new entry. Sure, sequels are great, and in a perfect world, we would all get new entries in every series we love all the time. But if Nintendo just isn't into making the next DK or Pikmin or whatever it is, this is a way to at least give us something. Take a small team, give them the assets, and see what they can come up with. Even if it ends up being a small project, we'll be glad we at least got something. And if you want to open this up even further, for all we know, this kind of thing could lead to full new entries. What if a little team starts doing such interesting things with what they're given that Nintendo decides to turn their project into a full game? Or they do a little thing and it sells so well that suddenly Nintendo realizes the property has potential, so they give it priority again. So much can come from it. Bowser's Fury is very similar to Age of Calamity in that it's something I'd never considered before, but now that it's here, it feels like something we need more of. And really, it all ties together nicely. I've got a few common themes running through my videos, often fueled by a combination of my own capitalistic ideals and my simple fanboy hunger for more video games. I think Nintendo can be doing a lot more with their properties than they are, and I'm always looking for ways they can produce more without sacrificing quality. I come up with a lot of my own ideas, but sometimes they lay the plans out right in front of us. And as with Age of Calamity, Bowser's Fury is one of those plans. It's a blueprint for producing more content, making that content super interesting and creative, selling that content, and making more moolah. Nintendo created the blueprint, but unfortunately it's yet to be seen if they consider it a blueprint in the same way I do, or if they plan on following it at all. I hate to say it, but also, as with Age of Calamity, it's most likely that this is a one-and-done kind of thing. And they don't plan on expanding the idea to create new stories and spin-offs and all that for their different series. They don't tend to operate based on solid plans and strategies as I wish they did. Instead, leaning more on whatever seems to be working at the moment. And hey, I can appreciate the creative purity there. They're not gonna force an idea, they're just gonna let it happen naturally and be done with it, and maybe someday they'll pick it back up again and do something else with it, but who really knows? But I can at least hope they're open to the idea of doing more stuff like Bowser's Fury. I hope this has at least got them thinking about smaller, more regular supplemental Mario content, and about what other games could be unearthed and turned into fresh, new experiences. Because I do like me some Nintendo games, but they can take an awfully long time to get to us. If DLC was a way for Nintendo to make some money and for us to have some more fun while we wait for more games, then this model takes the idea even further. And if they do adopt this model and just happen to keep making free roam sandboxes with super epic fights out of their old games, then all the better for Arlo. But what do you think? Is this an exciting new development model, or am I just being greedy? Before you answer that, however, remember this. It can be both. But whatever the case, let me know down in the comments. And stay tuned, because next month I'm launching a new initiative to start taking my old videos and making new videos out of them. Kane, hit him with a good example. Don't bother playing video games. Pikmin stinks. Breath of the Wild is a miserable affair. But Star Fox Zero, the stroke of expert game design, is a great game. It's beautiful. One more thing. I love Kane more than... Yo. See you later.